Hey, it's West of Everest. I'm Lee Benson. He is Grant Benson. Welcome back. Of course, a lot has happened since Oklahoma's season ended in the first round of the college football playoff a little more than 3 weeks ago now. And much of the news stems from the transfer portal. By now, all of you know who is committed to Oklahoma and who is leaving Oklahoma. And in an attempt to make things somewhat interesting here in our first show in a while, what we're going to do is rank which incoming players will be the most important on Oklahoma's roster for the 2026 season. And we'll also do a version of that for the Oklahoma players that are leaving the program. There's a lot more of those leaving. We're not going to have the same format, but it'll make sense, I promise. Also, Oklahoma's got a new tight ends coach, and it's a name that everybody recognizes. We have yet to get an official announcement on the departure of Oklahoma's previous tight ends coach. Let's see what else is going on. Of course, the national championship game is set. The matchup is set. We can discuss college football playoff news, notes, games, whatever like that, all that stuff at the end of the show as we normally do. So, hello, Grant. How you feeling after a nice little 3-week hiatus?
Oh, I'm still alive. I've been pretty sick the last week and a half, 2 weeks. I got that flu that was going around that kind of seemingly everybody got. So been out of commission a little bit, but that's given me plenty of time to sit on my butt on the couch, watch a lot of football, kind of follow to a T everything that's been going on in the transfer portal. So obviously lots of feelings, lots of thoughts over the last few weeks since the season unceremoniously ended. But I'm feeling good getting back into this. There's a lot of stuff to talk about.
I do want to say, before we get into the meat of the show, that I have spent some time working on a couple of projects during our time off. And I put it on the West of Everest Facebook page a couple of weeks ago, a bit of a preview. And so I want to talk about a little bit about it right now. The first project, I'm trying to put the first 4 seasons of Brent Venables as Oklahoma's head coach into historical perspective. So what's the purpose of this? To see what history tells us about Brent Venables' future based on the first 4 seasons, and this is the important part, as a first-time head coach. My other project is trying to put into perspective DeMarco Murray's 6-season tenure as OU's running backs coach. The purpose of that, compare Oklahoma's running back situation the last handful of years to the rest of the SEC to find out if our criticisms of DeMarco Murray over the years are warranted, or if upon further review, when you compare him to the other teams in the conference, maybe we need to cut him a little bit more slack. So since we have a lot to talk about today when it comes to the transfer portal and catching up on all the news that's happened over the last few weeks, we're going to hold off on presenting my findings on those 2 projects for later in the offseason because we'll have times where we have nothing to talk about. But I did want to just give you guys a heads up on a little bit of a preview of some things that we have in the works for the next few weeks or so, or however long it takes us to get there. So, Grant, any thoughts on those 2 projects, or do you want to just wait until I present what I find?
Yeah, first of all, do need to mention that Lee put together the show today, so for the first time in a while, so that's why a lot of content here today. So I want to thank Lee for putting that stuff together. On the 2 projects or whatever, I think those are interesting. I definitely I definitely want to see what you present when we do those, on the show here in the near future. I do have a little bit of thoughts just sort of like on the premise of both of those. Number one, I think looking at the Brent Venables project over the last 4 years, historically, putting it in historical context, I want to see what you come up with, obviously, but I do think in the last 3 weeks, some things have happened in college football that kind of make some of our historical predictions or feelings or vibes about Brent Venables. I think it puts it into a different light because a guy who had honestly, I think had been a bad college football coach up until last season. Mario Cristobal is playing in the national championship game. I think that kind of makes what we could find in the first 4 or 5 years of Venables' tenure. I think that puts it into a different context, makes us think about it a little bit more. Maybe college football has changed so much that this doesn't matter as much anymore. And then number 2 on the DeMarco Murray piece, I obviously will be interested to see what you come up with. But in my eyes, DeMarco Murray is a pretty obviously bad running backs coach at the college football level. Guy shouldn't be on the coaching staff anymore. But as you like to do, we need to show our work, and we'll keep hammering that over and over again. It's indefensible that he's still part of the coaching staff.
Couple of things. So I think you're right when it comes to so that I want to say again, first year head coach. That's the important part, and I'll explain it more when I get to the project because obviously Venables has never been a head coach. You mentioned Mario Cristobal. Mario Cristobal, yes, yeah, we've said many things about Cristobal on this podcast, and I think all of them have been mostly correct. This season, he's about to play for a national title. Mario Cristobal has been a head coach for a long time at many stops. He's learned a lot. And so this is what's important to me is the first time aspect, because if Brent Venables had been a head coach at many stops for the last 20 years, and then he got the OU head coaching job, I bet, and I don't have this background, but based on, hey, there's anecdotal evidence with Cristobal, I bet he'd be a lot better at being a head coach right now, just based off of experience. I mean, how can you not be better at it? So he's learning on the job and he's improved, you could say. Of course, he made the playoff this year. And so some more insight. What I looked for in this project is I went back and I looked at the most winningest programs in all of college football. It's like, okay, let's just look at that. I mean, and I went down the list. I can't remember how many I decided on. I mean, it's probably 20 or so teams, maybe more. I don't know. I'll have more details, obviously, and thought, okay, of the winningest programs, let's go back and look at their history. And I, my date was like 1970 of kind of like when a coach was around. And there's some you'll see when I get there. There's some that are before 1970, and mostly it's based off of because a coach was hired in like the 60s, but then he was there for a long time. And so it goes into the 70s. So it's like, you know what, this coach, like it makes sense to include this coach. And what I did is I looked at all of the first time head coaches at all of these winning programs and see how they how their first four seasons went. And so again, I'll have that. We'll present that at a later date. And I think the findings are there's something, but to your point, the game has changed a lot. The sport has changed a lot in the last handful of years. So how much can history really tell us at this point? That's a good question. But I think it's important though to look back and just have that context because there's a reason why we had been so hard on Brent Venables. And when you see my findings, it'll definitely provide supporting evidence for that. And as for DeMarco Murray goes, yes, we've provided a lot of evidence about DeMarco Murray's shortcomings in an Oklahoma sense. I think it's important, though, to look at the entirety of now the SEC conference. That's a lot of teams. That's 16 teams. And so, kind of the same, you've said in the past, like, man, Oklahoma always seems like they're injured. They're always injured. And I've said, well, what if other schools are also super injured? We just don't follow it close enough. So, and I'll no reason to get into it, but there's a reason and like the way I look up stuff for SEC teams. So I want to compare DeMarco's coaching to the rest of the SEC. Okay, we'll get to that later. Later show.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, no, I think it. But
Yeah.
I think all of that when we're talking about off-season content. I mean, the transfer portal is going to close eventually, and the spring portal doesn't exist anymore. So, um, there's going to only be so much that we can talk about in that sense, and that's already wrapping up. There's only about a week or so left of the portal being open. So, yeah, we're going to have to kind of start talking about everything in historical terms. Especially now, it seems like there was only one change on the coaching staff. Can't imagine that Emmett Jones or DeMarco Murray are going to be fired or going to move on to somewhere else at this point in time. We've already had the Witten news. So, yeah, that'll be interesting. I think that's going to be a big part of the offseason discussion other than what is going to be the number one question going into 2026. And we're going to sit here, we're going to talk about all these transfer portal guys, and a lot of this stuff is significant, I think. But I still think the number one factor going into next season, can OU compete for a national championship? It all has to do with John Mateer and how big of a step he can take in the offseason. And I know that sounds overly simplistic, kind of boring, but everybody knows that that's the case. John Mateer, if he can take a step to look like, let's say, to look like the guy that was at Washington State last season, but just transpose that into the SEC. If he can do that, then OU can probably compete for a national championship. But I think that's a big if as of right now. So, with that in mind, I think should we just dive in head
Yeah.
first to this transfer portal
Yeah.
stuff?
Well, just a quick cap on that. You're right. I mean, this is not high level analysis. It's something that a lot of people can see, but it's true. Look at the way the playoff has played out. Who's in the national title game? I mean, Indiana's excellent, obviously, but their quarterback plays excellent, and
Yeah.
Carson Beck has been terrific in the playoff. Uh, and he's been so calm. He's experienced.
He was so good in that Ole Miss game. I know he threw a pick, but it was on a bad ball. Really good play by Ole Miss. That was a terrific college football game. That was an awesome game. And the entire time I was watching it, I was like, oh gosh, 10 years ago, these are like 8 or 9 win teams in their respective conferences. Like you know, but that's how much the sport has changed. And so it's going to be interesting. Like it's not lost on me that the 4 teams that were in the Final Four of the college football playoff were all in the top 6 of transfer portal rankings, team rankings going into this season from last season. It's the sport has just changed massively, and rosters are not as loaded, they're not as good, and it really is about can you can you find the right mix of high school recruiting and supplementing with the portal, and the teams in the Final Four clearly did that. And so we're gonna hop into this. I think it's pretty obvious that I think the number one takeaway for me so far, before we get into like the ranking that the players that they've acquired and whatnot, I think it's obvious over the last week and a half that Oklahoma, with their front office and Jim Nagy, they clearly had a plan and they executed on their plan. Like, I mean, it was quick. They got guys on campus. A lot of the times they're getting guys on campus without anybody really knowing about it, which I think says that they were probably tampering a little bit, which it's not. There are no rules in college football, so it doesn't matter. And I think they pretty clearly identified guys that they wanted, and they went in and they got them. And I do think that if you compare that to prior seasons, they seem to be way more buttoned up. And like I'm trying to think of like a hyperbolic way to say that, like a little, because it's obvious. I mean, they were way more buttoned up. This ain't Curtis Lofton running the show anymore, pretty obviously. And so at this point, like you don't really know. You hope that the front office, which has grown in staff, has a lot of scouts on it. You hope that they've identified guys who are dudes, and that's kind of what you're hoping for. And we'll see what happens here.
Well, what has stood out to me is that they have picked up players obviously of need, and it's I mean I don't know in the past like we were yelling go get a corner last year. Turned out Oklahoma's corners ended up being pretty good, and
I
I
think they
mean
kind of lucked out on it. There's no way that
I
they could
agree.
have.
I agree.
Cortland Guillory's really good. There's absolutely no way that they would have known it would have worked out that well in the spring. No way.
No. No, and look at the guy I mean, mentioned that Oklahoma should have been going to get the guy from Washington State about to play for a national title game at
And
Miami.
I think they were going after him. They just lost out to Miami for him. They really wanted him. And that was Curtis Lofton going after him. If Jim Nagy would have been in place like at that time last year, who's to say that they wouldn't have gotten him? And it ended up being like OU's corner situation is not the reason why
No.
they went out in the first round of the playoff. Their defense was terrific this year across the board. Like you can't really complain about it. But yeah, like I from a narrative standpoint, seeing the Ethan O'Connor guy, like the dude was on TV a ton in that game. Like I mean, they were going after him a lot, sometimes with success, sometimes with no success. He also got away with a horrendously blatant PI on that last play of the game.
Was
On
that
like
him?
the Hail Mary. Yeah, that was O'Connor. But yeah, your point is well taken.
And he also dropped he was one of the 4 guys who dropped picks in the game, and he had maybe the easiest one where it was deflected, and it was in his hands, and it was just floating, and, like, his reaction afterwards, obviously, he was like, "I cannot bel how did I drop that?" But yeah, so it's nice to see that Oklahoma has gotten players of need. It seems like you're right. The plan has been set. That's Jim Nagy's job, though. So I hope that he would describe it as, yeah, that's what I'm supposed to be doing. This should like he's not in the film room week to week helping with prepping for the games. He's just doing this stuff. So that it should be buttoned up. And so far, so good. And yeah, like, are they going to be good players? We don't know yet. All we can go on is how they played before and how they fit in. And so let's get to it on the show because everybody's talked about these players, some more than others. Somebody, and you talk to, you listen to podcast, everybody thinks they're going to be great. I'm sorry. Like, oh, it's great. It's like, okay, no, that's not necessarily the case, guys. I mean, there's some that make sense. Some that's like, I don't know. We'll see. And so I want to rank how important each guy's going to be for next season. And so far, as we record here on Sunday morning, January 11th, Oklahoma's gotten 11 new players out of the portal, 8 on the offense, 3 defensive players. According to the 247 Sports Transfer Portal team rankings, actually, I put this in the rundown yesterday. This may not be accurate. The last time I looked, Oklahoma was 8th in the nation. I know that Oklahoma got a new offensive lineman either late last night or earlier this morning, so I'm not sure if that impacted their ranking. We can look it up right now, Grant, if you don't
I
mind.
would
Please look that
I
up.
would think so. He was a this is Peyton Joseph. He's a guard for coming in from Georgia Tech. He was a blue chip recruit in last year's recruiting class, so he was like a 4-star guy. So I would assume that he is um a pretty decent transfer in that regard. I know they give star rankings to transfers now, but because he's only spent 1 year in college and he was a 4-star guy, my guess is that he was probably relatively coveted. So who knows?
All right, so I've gone on to the 247 transfer portal team rankings, and it appears that they have not updated it with Peyton Joseph because it still says Oklahoma has 10 commits. So when I looked at this yesterday, that OU was 8th in the nation. Now they've actually fallen to 12th. So they're out of the top 10. And they were second in the SEC behind LSU. Now they are 1, 2, 3. Wow, they're 5th in the SEC. Auburn, Ole Miss, Kentucky, LSU have all have been ahead or have them
And
now.
you do have to put it into context. When you're talking about like LSU, Kentucky, Auburn, these are all teams that had coaching changes.
Yeah,
So they're getting lots of volume. They're getting a lot of guys. Who knows if those guys will be dudes? I would
right.
assume that on the LSU side, it kind of makes sense that LSU would probably get the most dudes in that sense. Kentucky, I know they're getting kind of surprisingly a lot of offensive guys because of Will Stein that has come in. Um, Auburn has brought in a lot of guys from South Florida, like Byron Brown and everything. So, um, we'll see. I'm assuming because OU has had a lot of guys transfer out. OU's probably not done in the portal, but I think the guys that they get from this point on are mostly going to be, we are replacing these bodies in this room. And I think they're probably going to try to look for young guys who have 2 to 3 at least years more, like to develop and whatnot. Like you kind of see that with one of the guys they went after on defense, Dakota Fields. That's a guy who's got, I think, 4 years left, and he's gonna be going into his 3rd year of college football. And he was a blue chip guy. He was like a top 100 recruit. He hadn't played at all since he's been at Oregon. So it's going to be stuff like that, I think.
All right, yeah, Oklahoma State now back number 1. They have 42 guys. I mean, their entire roster is going to be different, which not surprising with a new
And that's
coach.
different. And that's going to be different. So yeah, Oklahoma State, just by like pure numbers, is probably going to have the number 1 transfer class. And they got some big, like the big 3 from North Texas, Mestamaker, Hawkins, and their receiver, who I'm blanking on his name, but they're all going to Oklahoma State. So those are all pretty good pickups for them. But Oklahoma State's probably gonna have the number 1 portal class. I mean, that's still best case scenario, like a 7 or 8 win team in the Big 10, Big 12 next year. Gosh, I got it all mixed up. So that sort of stuff. Yeah, Oklahoma State is not going to be competing for a national championship next year. So that, even if they have the number 1 portal class, that's not something that I think you got to freak out about.
All right, so we're going to rank the new OU players by how important they will be for the 2026 season. And I chose the word important because it's a little bit broader than impactful. So Grant and I can explain why we think someone is important to the roster or not as important as other players. So we've got 11 newcomers now. One of them is relatively new here in the last 24 hours. I think we should do it in reverse order, I guess.
Now, are we going to do it? Are we doing this overall, or are we breaking it into the offense and the defense?
overall.
Oh, we're doing it overall. All right. Well, it makes
Well,
it
I
well.
mean, if
Hold
you
on, I
have
I, I broke it in. Let me because there's only three guys on the defense. So how about you filibuster a little bit, but while I just kind of throw these in there.
all right, so Grant's gonna re-rank his, and that's on me for not being as communicative. I figure since there's 11, since I think it was because there was only 3 on defense, I was like, well, that kind of easy to rank those, I would bet, based on who they got. So let's do it all, and because it's all encompassing for the importance of the team as a whole, I think is more interesting. So
I'm ready now. By the way,
all right, and so obviously we're gonna probably have some of the same, some of the not, and this is on the fly, but it was 10, now it's 11. Let's go. So I'm gonna start and with my number 11 pick, and I'll be honest, number 11 is gonna be the guy they just got, Peyton Joseph on the offensive line. And I kind of looked at this morning and thought, hey, maybe he could fit in. Nope. To me, he didn't really play at all this past year. He was a blue chip recruit to Georgia Tech, which I like that he's coming from a good offense. But right now, I have him ranked as the 11th most important because he's basically put him up there with a guy like guys on Oklahoma's roster on the offensive line, like a Darius Afalava, who was an incoming guard, big dude, didn't play, but it's like got the same amount of experience. Can that guy turn into something? He's just depth at this point, and you want to hope that they make a jump. So I go Peyton Joseph as my number 11 most important incoming player.
we agree. I also have Peyton Joseph at 11. It's the same bit. If we're talking about guys who are going to be like for the 2026 version of Oklahoma, I think of the 11 guys they've gotten so far, he is the least likely to be a factor on the team. I look at him as just full on. We lost some guys in our offensive line room. Here's a young guy who is a blue chip guy that we can project as maybe helping us down the line, and we need more bodies in that room. And so we're bringing this guy in. He's probably going to develop, learn the offense, get in the weight room for a year, and then maybe by 2027 we can start thinking like, oh, okay, maybe this guy is going to be in the rotation and he can be a good piece for them. But for 2026, this guy probably not going to be much of a factor, I would guess.
All right, I'll let you go with your number 10. We can go back and forth. Who's your number 10 guy?
My number 10 guy is over to the defense, Dakota Fields, the Oregon corner. And this is a guy who, I mean, you love his size. I mean, he's like 6'2", 200 pounds. But I think, he's coming from a top 5 program right now in college football at Oregon. Didn't get on the field at all. This is a guy who left the team kind of like during the playoff run. And so I look at this guy fully as, hey, we like your measurables. We lost Gentry Williams. We lost Davon Jordan. I, you know, we have like kind of our top 3 corners from this past season coming back already with Bowen, Guillory, and Jacoby J. I just really, really like this guy's athletic profile. Let's bring him in. Let's see if he's sort of a wild card. Let's see if we can maybe like this guy's kind of a lottery ticket. I see it as. And so I don't see him being any sort of factor really this upcoming season. But with those measurables and everything, I mean, maybe down the line. I think you like it. Like this kind of seems to me like a low risk, high reward type dude.
All right, we agree as well. Fields is also my number 10 most important for all the reasons. So he's been in college for 2 years. This will be his third year coming with Oklahoma. He was a redshirt freshman last year, and played sparingly early in the year. And like you said, he kind of indicated, I believe in like November, that he was going to leave the team. So yes, the size is great. He was a consensus 4-star player coming out of high school. Just I'm just generally skeptical of a kid who couldn't cut it at Oregon, which right now is a more successful program than Oklahoma and also has a really good defense as well. So he couldn't cut it there. Coming on over to OU, like you said, yeah, maybe he'll pan out. Maybe it'll work better at Oklahoma, but we don't know that yet. And so, yes, he is number 10, and he comes into a cornerback room that has lost some guys. So maybe he can, in theory, maybe fill in for Davon Jordan. That would be best case scenario. Hey, can he? Losing Davon Jordan, preview for later in the show, not great. Can Dakota Fields take up the reins and be a player like Davon Jordan was? We'll find out. All right, number 9 on my most important list. Over to the offense, and this is going to be Lloyd Avant, running back from Colorado State. And here's why Lloyd is not higher on my list. Because if DeMarco Murray was not the running backs coach, Lloyd Avant would be higher. Because I actually like his running style. Um, I watched a little bit of his highlights. Let me go to my notes on him real quick. He has no wasted movement. I like how he runs low to the ground. He's got good balance. This is, I know you like doing comps on what certain players look like when they run, and this is probably just more for me and not necessarily those who listen to the show, but his running style and the way he looks, and it probably helps that his numbers are the same. If anybody has been watching the Chicago Bears this year, he kind of looks like Kyle Monangai, the way he runs the ball. Kyle Monangai has been surprisingly great. But honestly, look back, like Monangai was like a mid 4.5 yard per carry guy at Rutgers. Maybe he was like at 5, and he's been great in the Ben Johnson offense. Lloyd Avant's numbers this last year were not flashy or anything like that, but when you watch him play, he seems like a guy that's pretty smooth, and I like the way he runs, and I think he can see his blocks well. There's a play, there's a 4th and 1 against Fresno State I watched where he took a pitch, and the safety reads it well and contacts Avant a yard in the backfield, and Avant was able to slip through the tackle, keep his balance, and pick up the first down. So goes back to, hey, don't let that first guy tackle you. That was a good sign to see on that play. And then I saw there was a touchdown run against Fresno State where it was well blocked on an outside zone. He read the blocks, then exploded to the edge for a touchdown. So Lloyd Avant, I'm sorry, if it was a different situation, I'd have him higher on this list. I think he actually might be pretty good, but given DeMarco Murray being in the room and also the fact that Oklahoma has not had a whole lot of success with transfer portal running back since Eric Gray, I'm going to put him at number 9.
I will. We will revisit Lloyd Avant when we get further down the list. He is quite a bit higher for me than he is for you. So, my number 9 guy is Caleb Nida, the center from Western Kentucky. I'm gonna be honest with you. I just this guy's played a lot of college football. I think it's nice to sort of have the center depth. You can say to yourself, "Hey, if Michaela is not fully recovered from this thing, that this virus or whatever that he had 2 months ago now, or if he gets banged up or anything like that, it's like, oh hey, the guy behind him is a dude who's played a lot of college football and was like was an all conference USA guy at one point in time. I think, I don't know, I'm skeptical of group of 5 offensive linemen at this point in time. And I think if this guy is playing a lot of snaps for you, something has probably gone wrong. But from a depth perspective, I think this is a guy who is going to be in the quote unquote rotation, even though centers very rarely rotate out. But this guy's going to be in the 2 deep. So he's up there for me a little bit. I guess he's at number 9. But once you get into this, I mean, we're going to get into when you get into the top 9, top 8, these are all guys who are going to contribute on the offensive side of the ball.
All right. Next for me, actually for you. So, because I just went number 9 first. So now number 8 for you. Who's your number 8 guy?
My number 8 is Kenny Ozawalu, the defensive lineman that they just got from the University of Texas, San Antonio, right? The Roadrunners.
Mm-hmm.
This guy to me, this one's pretty easy. It looks like he's going to be, they want him to be a defensive end, I believe. He's got great size, and anyone that defensive line grouping brings in, I think Miguel Chavis, Todd Bates, they have earned the benefit of the doubt completely. So, and that's a guy who, this was a dude, this is like his first year of playing college football this year. He didn't have a ton of production. He had 3 sacks for UTSA, but there's some highlight packages out there. And the guy's explosive. He's an explosive player, and he's still just kind of figuring it out. You like his size profile. And so any guy who has like an NFL body, who when you watch his thing, like he can move, like he closes really quickly. Get him into the weight room, get him into this defensive line room with the coaches who have developed a lot of guys who sort of have that profile already in the first 4 years that they've been in Norman. This is a guy who I think is like, this may be the ultimate lottery ticket in this thing. I think on the defensive side of the ball, you get a guy with 3 years of eligibility left who has got a lot of room to grow. I think this is a pickup that you like for sure.
All right. Yep. He is not my number 8. Actually, so for 8 and 7, I have a tie. So my number 8 and number 7 is a tie. And so I suppose I'm taking 2 spots here, and it's the 2 new tight ends, Hayden Hansen and Reagan Beers, as tied for number 7, technically, so 7 and 8. And everyone knows the tight end room is basically empty at this point, and they're going to be expected to play. These 2 guys are going to be expected to play a ton of snaps. They're not higher on the list because I'm not sure what Ben Arbuckle wants to do with the tight end. And I mean, Jaron Kanak last year had the most production by a tight end in an Arbuckle offense in his short career, which sounds like, hey, that's a good thing. He kind of figured it out, right? But it's almost like I think Kanak was used more as a wide receiver because Hayden Hansen and Rocky Beers are not the type of player that Jaron Kanak was or is. So I think typically, like, what does history tell us about Ben Arbuckle's tight end room in his offense? Typically, the top guy catches at the max 20 or so balls, just short of 300 yards and maybe 4 to 6 touchdowns. And that's just not how Kanak was used last season, nor was Carson Kent or Will Huggins. So there's a lot of unknown with how this position group will be used. And that's why I have these guys ranked so low or lower than clearly you do. Well, I guess we'll see what you say for your 8 or 7. So here you go. And based on history, here's my guess. So in 2022, Ben Arbuckle was calling plays for the first time at Western Kentucky. And the Hilltoppers had 2 tight ends that combined for 11 touchdown catches each, they combined for 11 touchdown catches. And the one guy was Joshua Simon. He was 6'5", 240. Went on to play. He was on South Carolina the last couple of years. And the other guy, Joey Belgian, I'm not sure how you say his last name, 6'3", 250. So yeah, Hayden Hansen, who's listed at 6'7", 270. Rocky Beers, 6'5", 250. These 2 players are more of a comp to the 2022 Western Kentucky 2 big old tight ends. Simon back in 2022 had 20 catches. Beljean had 15 catches. So maybe that's what Ben Arbuckle's kind of foreseeing is like, hey, these 2 big-bodied dudes, they can be end zone, red zone targets. Maybe that's the comp. But then again, there's not a whole lot of history. And honestly, Jason Witten now is going to be coaching these guys up. So what the heck? Who knows? Like maybe both of these tight ends will be all SEC. I don't know.
Well, it's convenient because Rocky Beers and Hayden Hansen are next on my list anyway, so we might as well just get into that. So they are
Oh,
my number
okay.
7 and number 6 guys. I didn't do the whole tie nonsense that you did. I have Hansen above Rocky Beers. I think they're bringing in Hansen. He's going to be tight end 1. He's been tight end 1 in the SEC at Florida for the last 2 seasons for them. He is definitely more of a blocking guy than he is a receiving threat. And there's some cut-ups kind of online of him blocking, of him handling guys who are like in the NFL right now. And so I think number 1 with Hayden Hansen, they just want a big tight end body in there to help in the run game. Because one thing that I think is pretty clear based off of the 2025 season, Ben Arbuckle wants to use his tight ends to help in the run game. And so I'm very skeptical of this thing. I think if your entire run game is hinging on how well your tight ends block, your run scheme sucks, like hard, sucks really hard.
Well, unless
And
you're some like a Kyle Shanahan or like a Matt LaFleur, Kyle Shanahan, like that type of offense where you got
sure,
13 personnel, and that's a big part of your system.
sure, yeah,
And
like,
you're
and
yeah,
that's what I'll always
that's not
say.
Ben Arbuckle.
This is just my thing. Tight ends are a luxury. Tight ends are a complete luxury, either in the run game or in the pass game. If you have them, then use them. Because, yeah, like having a couple of tight ends who can block really, really well. I'm thinking back to think of a guy like Carson Meyer. Like that guy could, stuff like that. Like they can
Well, he was
absolutely.
technically an H back, but
Who was an
he
H
could
back,
block.
but I mean, they'd use him as a tight like, and
You
so
could line him
that
up in
stuff.
line. Yeah.
That stuff can absolutely help for sure. But if you don't have it, you don't have it. And I think one of my big frustrations with Arbuckle this past season was that he just kept kind of lowering his head and running into a brick wall with that stuff over and over again. When anecdotally for me, I thought that they had by far the most success running the ball when they just spread everybody out and didn't even have a tight end in the box and they just ran against the light box. So I don't know why they kept trying it if it didn't work. And So in that sense, I think they're going to get Hansen and Beers as an opportunity. We need to get better blocking up the run game, and we'll see what happens. You love Hansen's size, obviously. I mean, he's a guy who could be a red zone dude. I mean, he's gonna be bigger than everybody else on the field, so that's great. When it comes to Rocky Beers, when I've watched him, you watch like his highlight cut up, and it looks like he moves pretty well. He looks like he could be a pretty decent receiving threat. You kind of scratch your head at he just hadn't had a lot of production at the college level. Last season was his best year, as a receiver at this level. He had like 350 yards. He did have 7 touchdowns, which is nice to see. But when I watch him, I'll be honest with you, he just kind of looks like a Bauer Sharp 2.0. Which if you're relying on that guy to be tight end 2, then I think that's a lot better. Which it kind of appears to me pretty obviously that Beers is going to be tight end 2. So I these guys don't excite me like a ton, but I guess it wouldn't surprise me if, we see Hayden Hansen play just like a ton of snaps this year, and he does like a lot of the good, like dirty work that the tight end room in the past wasn't able to do. I think in that sense it would be a good pickup. But man, I give me a tight end who is a receiving threat 100% of the time over a guy who is just a blocker. So in that sense, I do think, whatever. They're not going to be dynamic at the tight end position this season.
Yeah, and good on you because yeah, you're right. I mean, Hayden Hansen, it would appear he's been brought in to be more of a blocking tight end. I mean, his his offensive production numbers have increased throughout his years at Florida. And, yeah, he played a ton of games at Florida. He's played a lot in the SEC. But the way I look, and so that's my blind spot, because when I look at this stuff, I look at just offensive production, pass catching, because honestly, right, wrong, or indifferent, I don't think the blocking aspect of this should be that big of a deal. It just shouldn't be. And yet apparently people think it is. And you know what, maybe this year with these two players that I think Beers is most certainly more looked at kind of more as the move tight end, but he's a big guy, sure, he'll be able to block. And they're both big targets. You can see on their tape. I mean, uh, Rocky Beers caught a touchdown pass first against Fresno State, where he was a red zone target. The quarterback just threw it up there, and Beers high points the ball. So, and Hayden Hansen can do that too. It it'll be interesting because Joe John Finley's got a lot of criticism, rightly so, for that room. Now Jason Witten comes in. I mean he was a high school head coach at a low level TAPS program that has been very successful the last few years or so. Okay, I'm happy that he was a successful head coach, and he obviously knows how to play tight end at the NFL level. Will his coaching? I mean, yeah, very curious to see what the tight ends look like, because if we go run it back, not run it back, if it looks kind of the same, it's going to be kind of like, well, this is just either the offensive system or just these guys aren't very good, but mostly probably the offensive system. But we just don't know that yet.
And we'll see. We'll get into it later on in this. But I'm the tight ends, whatever. And I don't think Joe John Finley did a good job. Like that's not what but of the 3 coaches that I think going into this offseason that were very much on the chopping block in my eyes on the offensive side of the ball, Finley would have been the last on that list for me. I think it would have been a lot better if they would have moved on from Murray and Emmett Jones. But
And I agree, because I just don't think the tight end has that much impact compared to the other two positions.
it's a luxury. It is a
Yeah.
luxury. If you have really good tight ends, it can make a good offense into a great offense, a mediocre offense into a good offense. Um, but again, it's a luxury. I'd still much rather have a bunch of dudes at receiver and running back.
I mean, look at Alabama. Their offense was good, but then also not great this year for certain reasons. They were very good at receiver. They had guys that can catch the ball, and at running back, not great. And then Cuevas, who's a fine tight end, but I think if the receivers were like OU's guys and maybe only had one dude like Isaiah Zatania, and the running backs were like OU guy, like Cuevas would just be like, what would he be doing? Like people would just key on him, and he probably wouldn't get as many open targets. So, I mean, that's a theory, but anyways, yeah, I think we both agree. Like the tight end, like you said, it's a luxury, and but we'll see how it plays out. All right, so who's you want to just go? I can't
Yeah, I'll
remember
just
what
go.
number we're on.
I'm on number 5 here.
And I am on. Let me just see around because maybe because I tied for. I'm on number 6 actually. All right,
How
so
about you? How about you go with 6?
all right, at number 6 I got Kenny Ozawalu from UTSA, and I'll just kind of add a little bit more analysis to your thoughts on him from a little bit earlier, because UTSA, they did not want to lose this guy. Traylor, their coach, is just not happy about it. They were hoping that he would be one of their best players, if not their best player, for next year and like the year after that. So, and I'll just hit. I mean, you hit on it a little bit. I mean, he's coming into a great culture, a great coaching. A great coach in Miguel Chavis, who's gotten a lot out of his edge players, defensive ends. So, yeah, I'm with you. Maybe he can. Maybe going into 2026, even though he's a young player, maybe he can be a guy that can have the type of season that can maybe fill in and replace that production of like a Marvin Jones Jr. That'd be pretty cool. So yeah, I got him at number 6, and excited to see like what his development can be, mainly because of the culture and the team and the position coach he's coming into.
I was looking at like some of like his highlight cut ups or whatever on one of his 3 sacks of the season. Can't remember who they were playing or whatever, but he was playing on the inside and he comes around like on a stunt and he's free. He comes in free. He comes in like on a stunt. He comes in, nobody blocks him. But just like how quickly he closes on the quarterback, like when he comes free, it's like it's one of those things you watch. You're like, whoa, like that guy's got some juice. And you would have liked, you would have liked to see more production out of that. But also, his first year playing, and sometimes it can sort of take a while to get used to the speed of the game. But you like the fact that he does kind of profile as a freak athlete. Going into that room, I think is great. So I think that's just like that's a Jim Nagy pickup right there, where it's like they're scouting and they're looking for dudes at the lower levels who have measurables and can really move. And he kind of seems to be one of those guys. And so I think we're gonna see him this year a little bit. I wouldn't be surprised if he's in the rotation, because I think you're looking at the defensive line right now. Those top line guys, like the starters that they have locked in right now, I think you can come up with the story that says I think 1 through 4 right now. I think OU might have the best defensive line in the SEC again. The depth after that is where you kind of start to scratch your head and like, okay, they need some more bodies in there, and I think Ozawalu is going to be one of those guys. So, all right, I will move on for my number 5, and I will talk about someone that you just talked about 10 or 15 minutes ago, Lloyd Avant from Colorado State. I like this guy. I like this guy a lot. And your concerns about him going into DeMarco Murray's room, those are well taken. I think that's totally valid. What I would say is he is going to him and Jonathan Hatton coming in are going to be the 2 guys who have not been coached by DeMarco Murray so far. So they may be terrific, and they may just not. They may not. He may not have any choice but to play him. I'm like Colorado State, them taking Avant and Rocky Beers. Colorado State was bad this year. That is a bad team. And so I think so. That's one thing where you're kind of scared of, but also you could tell the story of maybe everyone around them was really bad, and Avant and Beers getting the production that they did get this season was like a minor miracle. Because when I watch Avant's highlight package, he looks great to me. I mean, he looks like a guy who can really move. Um, I've kind of come back, or like I've been thinking about this a lot since the season ended. I think Torrey Blaylock's a jag. I don't think he's special like at all. I watched Lloyd Avant and I'm immediately like, that guy's better than Blaylock. So I think they've already put a guy in there who is better than Blaylock. Whether or not he can play is whatever. Whether he can pass DeMarco Murray's weird standards for getting on the field, I guess will remain to be seen. But in terms of a guy who, when you get him the ball, he looks like he can get north or south very quickly and also make guys miss. That looks like Lloyd Avant to me. And so I do kind of want to because you already talked about him. I want to go back more into the running back room because I do think they absolutely need to go get another running back, because right now it's just that room is I
Want me to go over?
all of
I got the room here if you want me to
please,
go
yeah, go
over
for
one
it.
in it.
Mhm.
By the way, I'm with you. Just as an aside, the question is, if Torrey Blaylock would have been in that Colorado State offense or Xavier Robinson, would they have been able to carve out the same type of yards as Avant? We don't know the answer to that. But when it comes to just eyeball test and the way Avant runs and looks and his vision, I agree. He does look like he's more of a natural running back than Torrey Blaylock. And how much does that have to do with Torrey Blaylock's injuries this year? And Xavier Robinson's, I don't know, but I tend to agree with you. He looks a lot more smooth and like he knows how to follow his blocks and where the hole is, and he's not just trying to ram his head into people like Torrey Blaylock did a lot at the start of the season. So here's the running back room right now for OU. Of course, Torrey Blaylock, Xavier Robinson, Lloyd Avant. Then you got Jonathan Hatton, the true freshman, coming in. You got another true freshman coming in, DeSteven Walker, and Gabe Sawchuk and Andy Bass. Now, I believe that's it. Somebody listening can correct me, but I believe that's it.
Let's go then. Let's kind of just go through that and let's be just intellectually honest about it. The two guys who got the most carries this past season were not healthy at all. We didn't see Xavier Robinson until about midway through this season, and we saw him for about 2.5 games before he got injured. And after he got injured, he just wasn't the same guy. Like out there, against Alabama and LSU, it was the corpse of Xavier Robinson. It wasn't even against Missouri as well. Like the guy very clearly was not healthy. He should not have been playing, but he had to play because they didn't have any other bodies because DeMarco Murray is weird and just can't get anybody else ready to play. Torrey Blaylock, a guy who I just don't think has a lot of juice, was also the second half of the season was dealing with a shoulder injury, it seemed like. And so your top two guys who you have coming back were injured basically the entire season, if you take it all in totality. And then after that, you have Jonathan Hatton, who is a true freshman. Never rely on a true freshman, even though if a running back is a dude, he should be a dude immediately as a true freshman. That's typically how it works out. So we'll see with Hatton. DeSteven Walker, he's also a blue chip guy. Maybe he's a dude, but also it's like how often is a guy going to come in who is new to the program and he's instantly the number one guy and everybody else just gets worse under DeMarco Murray? That's whatever. And then Gabe Sawchuk, he's a walk-on. We don't really glad he's there, but also he's not going to factor in. Andy Bass, I'm pretty sure, is on scholarship. I don't think Andy Bass has ever been healthy for a football game in his life. So that is not something that you can count on. And so as of right now, Lloyd Avant is the only guy in the room who has proven to be healthy over the course of a college football season. And even then, I don't know, maybe he was banged up for Colorado State this year. I'm not sure. So listen, I think Xavier Robinson is a good back. I think he's a really good SEC back. I think when he's healthy, he looks like an NFL guy. Xavier Robinson has not been healthy a single time in his career at Oklahoma. It would be categorically insane to go into next season relying on Xavier Robinson and Torrey Blaylock to be your top two guys.
Oh boy. Sorry, I'm looking at see if Avant has any sort of injury issues.
For as much as it kind of feels like they have improved the offense so far, I think right now, objectively, running back and tight end are the two worst rooms on this roster, pretty clearly.
Sorry, yeah, so I'm with you. The thing is, they're going to be after what happened with Jade Knott last year. Obviously, there's no chance they're going to just go spend a bunch of money on a running back again. And I'm with you. I mean, and when I get to the DeMarco Murray project, and I'm doing this off of memory, but at other SEC schools, the last two Ott, everyone knows about Ott, and then Sam Franklin, the other transfer who didn't do anything at OU, who came in, and we both kind of liked what we saw from him at the FCS level.
He was relatively productive for South Florida this year.
Okay, yeah. So, but what I was getting at is that you'll see there's some of these teams in the SEC when they get guys out of the portal, these running backs. A lot of the time, these running backs will be their top rusher that year and they'll hit. That's what these portal guys are supposed to do. Now, no one's thinking that Lloyd Avant's going to be doing that because that's just not his background. But that's what Jade Knott was supposed to do, and that didn't happen. So it's
and I'm still like
yeah.
I still have like this sick, nauseous feeling that Jade Knott is going to get invited to a training camp and is going to make an NFL roster and be a guy. And and then we're just going to be like, what on earth happened? But that would that would be just an absolute crazy thing. But but this is where Jim Nagy needs to be. He needs him and his front office staff. They need to find a guy. Like I'm thinking of a guy like Kawan Lacey, who had like 30 carries for Missouri a season ago, and it was buried on their depth chart. They go out and they get like Missouri didn't want Kawan Lacey to be a guy. They go out and they get Ahmad Hardy, who is probably the best running back in college football. But then Kawan Lacey goes to Ole Miss, and he just has a massive season, and is clearly a guy who made their offense go. There are dudes, there are running backs out there who can be a lot better than what they've had in their room, and they don't need to pay a massive price for it. Like I just there's a like I graduated from Minnesota. Like I'm a Gopher and stuff too, and they just had a guy, their number 2 running back, Femi Ijaboy. He transferred out. He's going to Purdue. He's better than Torrey Blaylock. There's no way Purdue is paying him a lot of money. So and like that's not me saying that you should have gone after that guy. I'm just saying that there's dudes out there they can go and get who can get 10 or 15 carries out of him a game and be a lot better than what they saw this past season. I genuinely believe that.
Yeah, over the last 5 seasons or so, a little bit of preview of the DeMarco Murray project. When it comes to the SEC in terms of where Oklahoma running backs have ranked by season's end, as far as just in the SEC when it comes to total yards rushing and everything, like Oklahoma, not surprisingly, is in the bottom half of the SEC of the last 5 years, and that's even obviously some of those years were in the Big 12. I made sure to take the numbers that Oklahoma had in the Big 12 and compare it to what it would have been in the SEC for some of the. So, anyways, just that's part of it. I mean, that it's Oklahoma has been a bottom half of the SEC rushing team over the last 5 years, and specifically over the last 2 when Oklahoma has actually been in the SEC. All right, number 5 for me, I got Caleb Nita. By the way, I think it's Nita. There's a pronunciation thing that I listened to on Virginia Tech when he was there, and I like this is what every school should do. They should have the little ear thing on the roster, and when you click on it, it should be the player saying his name, and that's exactly what they had. And so he said his name is Caleb Nita. So I got him number 5 because, and for me, the offensive line. I mean, he replied he provides, excuse me, that replacement for a Troy Everett who gives OU depth at center. And absent injuries, Troy Everett was a nice player and he was good depth. And the thing is, Michaela's weird injury thing late in the season gets my antenna up. Like, hopefully there's no leftover problems for that going into next season, but that's why I have need a little bit higher, because it's like they need. And I know Foje may be the guy they would move over anyways, but interior depth at center. That's why I think Nita is pretty important going into this year. He started 9 games I think last year at Western Kentucky at center. Before that, he was a Virginia Tech guy. Clearly didn't cut it at Va Tech. So he was recruited by a P4 school, transferred. Now he's back with OU. So
I agree. I agree he's like important and he's going to be a factor this season. I just think he's probably not any good.
Well, that's why we do the list. You explain what we want. So that's number 5 for me is Caleb Nita. All right, number 4. I'll go number 4. And I'm curious to see our top 4 if our top 4 is the same.
Well,
number
I mean,
4
I think
for me,
based off it is. Well, it's going to be the same
as far
4
as
players, but we'll see if it's in the right order.
Well, yeah, it's got to be the same 4 players. Okay, well, I guess it didn't have to be, but yes, you're right, because none of these guys have been talked about yet. I'll go. Number 4 for me is Parker Livingston, the receiver from Texas. He'll be entering his 3rd year of college football, which I was thinking that it was only going to be a second. I thought he was a true freshman last year, but no, he was, I think, a redshirt freshman last year. Got some experience, played a significant role in Texas's offense last year, and I think Livingston will be even more important if Isaiah Satania doesn't come back, obviously. But I have him as my number
back.
4.
Satania's coming back.
Are you breaking news here on this podcast?
It's not confirmed, but it's just like he would have declared already, just based off of how they have operated in the portal so far. I think it's a very, very safe bet that Satania, Kip Lewis, and John Mateer are all back next year. extremely safe bet.
Well, I'll believe it when I see it. But that would be
Yeah.
obviously very important.
Okay.
I mean,
Well,
Mateer is
I'll
definitely coming back. I don't know why he would leave. That doesn't make any sense.
because it's a terrible quarterback class this year in the NFL, and he'll probably be overdrafted. That would be the reason to come back. But also, he's gonna, even in that sense, he's probably gonna make more money next year at OU than he would his rookie season in the NFL. So, I think all three of those guys are going to be back. Mateer being, I think, probably close to 100% at this point in time. So, Parker Livingston, it's going to be so hard for me not to call him Livingstone. I hate that it's Livingston when his name is spelled like that. Like, come on, give me a break here. Um, I will talk about him later on in my list.
All right,
So
well, then who's your number 4?
number 4 for me is the other big receiver they got in the transfer portal, Trell Harris. Listen, he's not my favorite guy. If this was like the guy that they identified as like this is the dude that they want, uh, color me a little underwhelmed. I've watched him and he looks like a nice player. Like he's not bad or anything. You like his production from a season ago. It does I don't love that he played at Virginia, who played just one of the cupcakiest schedules like that you'll ever see this year. Um, to me, he looks like a much more twitched up version of Jalil Farouk. He's a much bigger body, like he's 6'1", 200. He's pretty thick. It kind of seems like maybe the best part of his game is after the catch, like at being able to run through trash and stuff like that. It wouldn't surprise me at all if he leads the team in catches next season, because I think he's going to be the guy who gets like those little 5-yard RPO hitches that they throw a lot. That's going to be kind of his game. And if you go and watch his stuff at Virginia, it's a lot of that stuff. It's not a ton of downfield stuff. His explosive plays a lot of the time are with his legs after he makes the catch, which you like to see that. But if he was like the big time guy that they were going at, and it kind of seems like just once the portal opened, like they were on this guy immediately. He came in very quickly for a visit, which suggests that they were on him before the portal even opened. And so Jim Nagy and his staff, I think, clearly like this guy. They go after him. For me, because there was also talk that they were going to try to bring in Trey Richardson from Vanderbilt, Vanderbilt's leading receiver, for a visit as well. You look at his size, he profiles pretty closely to Trell Harris in that sense. I would have much preferred them going after Trey Richardson than Trell Harris. So I like Harris. He doesn't move the needle for me. I I don't necessarily profile him as like the number 1 or number 2 guy on a team that's trying to win a national championship. Definitely not.
Well, we'll just keep it going and keep it consistent. Trell's my number 3 guy, so we'll continue talking about him. And again, I mean, you look into all the insider stuff a lot more than me. And I mean, sure, if Satane is coming back, then this is not going to be as important. But yeah, if Satane is not around, I mean, their receiver room is they're going to need to get another guy. And yeah, he's a so when I first started watching him on tape, to me he looks really big. And then when I saw that he was listed on their roster at only 6 feet tall, I was like, oh, well, I'm not as impressed because I would have guessed at least he was 6'2". And why that matters is because when you watch him, he's not a burner. And but I thought like, hey, for a big like 6'2", 6'3" big body guy, he's decently fast. He can move pretty well. Like, oh, he's 6 feet. Like he should be faster for his body type. There's like one play from last year where you see him running away from a safety against Stanford. There's just bad defense. They put a safety on an island and he just ran deep. But like you said, not a whole lot of downfield stuff. You see a lot of stop routes, out routes, a lot of dig stuff. I do want to highlight his touchdown he had against North Carolina, just a little 12-yard out route, but he sheds a tackle from the corner and scored. He's got some size. He kind of looked like, I mean, just in his, you're big, like, oh man, his uniform, he looks great. Like to me, like with his number, he kind of looked like AJ Brown, but
Yeah.
AJ Brown's bigger. AJ Brown's bigger than him. That's why I thought he looked taller on the field. Nowhere
Trell
near
Harris
as good
is
as
not,
AJ Brown.
He's not small. Like that's why
No,
I
he's
want to
thick and he can make
that's
people
why I
miss.
say he's more like a Jalil Farouk, where but I think he's a little bit, but his bit is that he can run through arm tackles. And so if you're like assuming that Satania does come back, and if you need Trell Harris to sort of fill the Deion Burks, because Deion Burks weirdly last season was more of a possession receiver, you need him to fill that role. I think Trell Harris probably is a better fit for that because I think Trell Harris can break a tackle. Like I think he can. Deion Burks can't break a tackle to save his life. So I think Trell Harris is an NFL guy. I think he'd probably get drafted if he came out this year just based off production and just like his size and everything. And when I say size, I mean his like thickness. Um, but they need dudes, and I'm not sure he's a dude. I think he's a nice he appears to be a nice player.
All right, here you have it 3.
My number 3 guy is Cole Sullivan, linebacker they brought in from Michigan. My number one thing here is that, hey, it's pretty obvious, and you're right. Like I follow the insider stuff a lot. They were going after this guy hard. So it kind of feels like this was their number one guy in the portal. This is the guy that they wanted the most out of everybody. And it's if Brent Venables really liked him, it kind of sounds like Venables flew out personally to Pittsburgh, where he's from, to do an in-home visit to him just like a day or so before he actually committed. And with Kobe McKenzie and Sammy Omosigho portaling out, I think it's pretty clear they want this guy to be the other starting linebacker right next to Kip Lewis this upcoming season. And so for that fact, and he wasn't a starter when Michigan came to Norman, but he did play. He had a sack in that game. I think he had a forced fumble in that game that was recovered by OU. He took over a starter's role in Michigan about halfway through the season. He's pretty productive, and he's got a nice little highlight tape. Looks like he can run. He had a pick against who'd they play against Washington, where he did a nice he just kind of floated over into the flat and picked it off. Read the quarterback's eyes. Big time blue chip recruit. He was a top 100 guy. Brent Venables really likes him. Looks like he's going to be a starting linebacker this year. He's probably going to make a lot of tackles.
And we'll keep it consistent. I'll keep it. I have Sullivan number 2 on my list to keep it going, and this is just simply because I know that you're very confident, but we don't know about Kip Lewis yet. We're still waiting on Kip Lewis. I know it seems like Owen Heineke's not going to be a thing, and so this is simply the linebacker depth right now is tiny, and then you throw in the fact that tiny is slim. That doesn't make sense. Sammy Omosigho getting in the portal, throw that in there too. So it's just the depth at that position. And that position group is so low right now that's why I have Cole Sullivan so high, because he's got to be a plug and play starter for you at this point. By the way, I don't know if we can get into this maybe when we talk about the guys that are leaving. Maybe we should, but Sammy Omosigho, depending on how things go, I wonder if he could return. If their depth is,
of course he could,
or if it's like something he's considering, if their depth is like as bad as it looks right now on paper.
We'll see, and that's why I think, just with how buttoned up OU has been so far in the transfer portal, that's why I think Kip has got to be coming back. There would be much more urgency at the linebacker position if he wasn't coming back. And so I guess maybe he's telling them one thing, and then 2 weeks later he's like, "Oh, I'm actually going to go." And then OU would be kind of up the creek in that sense. But I just, these are conversations that they have to be having with him.
Well, sure.
And it would just be, sure. And if Kip Lewis is like leaning one way or the other, like let's say he's leaning the NFL, it'd be a real dick move for him. Like he needs, like they got to make these decisions because they got OU's got to go get guys. They can't, which is why it just like it kind of strains credulity to me that would be the case. They would be after other line because like there was a lot of talk that they really, really wanted the Owen Long guy from another Colorado State guy who led the country in tackles this year, had a bunch of TFLs. He ended up going to Arizona State, but it kind of sounded like that OU was like his number one choice, but then they got Cole Sullivan, and then he went to Arizona State instead. And so you would think that if Kip was leaving, they would have went out and gotten that guy too. And so who knows? Maybe they're putting together some sort of like big video after the portal closes, like these 3 guys are coming back, Matir, Satania, and Lewis. And so to me, reading the tea leaves, I think, Matir is going to be back. I think Lewis and Satania seems overwhelmingly likely that they will both be back just based off of the tea leaves. But it'd be sweet. I mean, Sullivan, what if like Venables really, really likes him? They were a huge priority for them in the front office, or for him in the front office. What if he's a dude? What if he's just really good? He might be. He's got a blue chip guy, was a starter on a really good Michigan defense. He's young.
Certainly have a lot more confidence in these defensive transfers. I mean, Kendall Daniels was terrific in
He was
2025 coming over from Oklahoma State.
It seems like they've gotten good production out of like all of their mainline defensive transfers they've
Marvin
got.
Jones Jr.
Marvin
had
Jones
a good,
Jr. was
good
just
year.
was
Yeah.
he was a glue guy. He had a good season. So yeah, you obviously feel a lot better about those guys because I think down the line, high school transfer portal, like them identifying guys and developing guys has just been night and day compared to the offense. And so I think the defensive side of the ball has completely earned the benefit of the doubt. Sullivan's probably going to be a really productive, good player for OU next season. Health notwithstanding.
All right. I only have one guy left. You have two. So
All
give us
right,
your number
Lee.
two.
Interesting. So I know who your number one guy is. So is going to be my number two guy, Marion Harris. He's 2-year starter on a really good Arkansas offense. Pretty easy. He's gonna be one of the big dogs on the offensive line this season. I thought even them bringing back their top 4 guys for the most part when like their offensive line was at its best this season. 3 of those guys were still freshmen or redshirt freshmen. It's probably good to bring in like a swing guy. And it kind of sounds like I've been reading some other stuff that it's like a speculative thing, but because he was playing right tackle for Arkansas the last 2 seasons, and I've seen some people speculate that, hey, if he was like a solid like offensive tackle, like in terms of the NFL, that he probably would be going to the draft this year because he's been in college for 4 years. And so maybe he's trying to go somewhere where he can show maybe a little bit more of like position flexibility. Like would you maybe try to get him at right guard to fill the Fabechi Wiwu hole at this point in time so he can put some stuff on tape like, hey, I can play multiple positions, draft me. But I think this guy is probably going to be one of your starters in the offensive line. I'm not exactly sure where. And he's big dude, starter on 2 really good offenses back-to-back years for Arkansas. I like it.
Yep, that's my number one guy because it's like you said, he's been a 2-year starter on a good offense in the SEC at right tackle. And I know Foje can project as a right tackle, but I mean, this guy's been doing it. And I'd expect him to win the job. Like I think they're going to expect this guy to be the starting right tackle. And I mean, but sure, if Foje takes a jump and he's better than him, then yeah, they're going to want this guy to kick inside to play guard.
But remember, they started Foje at guard this year, and so maybe they're like, we prefer Foje at guard.
Well, both.
And kick this guy.
I mean, and then
so I think
if Michael can't stay healthy, Foje's got to play center. So I mean, that's why this guy
Where are you getting that? I have never heard that Foje would play center.
Oh, I'm sorry. It was Wiwu. My bad. Wiwu was playing center.
Yeah, Wiwu was doing that. They have another guy like Owen Hollenbeck is a center that they like who's going to be a redshirt freshman this upcoming season. I think he would be like if Michael and Nita are both dead. I say that jokingly. Then it would probably be like they would probably want it to be Hollenbeck. So we'll see. But I think the Amarian Harris pickup is or Amarian, whatever that is. We'll get to that point. It's a good pickup. Starter in the SEC on the offensive line.
Yeah, and their depth on the outside at tackle is just not very good. I mean, he's going to have to be day one starter somewhere on that line. I would expect him to be at right tackle with Foje at right guard, and obviously you got Fasusi on the left side. So I mean, that's why I have him as my number one important guy because the offensive line is the most important. I mean, on the offense, that's like the most important thing next to the quarterback. So number one guy for me is Amarian Harris, however. And I looked for pronunciation for his first name. I couldn't find it anywhere. So that typically means it's you say it how it looks. So we're going to go Amarian.
Amarian, I think, would be the correct way to pronounce it based on how it looks. So, all right, my number one guy is Parker Livingston. He is of the three guys they got on campus, and we saw this year they only want to play three receivers. So, I think he's the guy who can be a number one receiver. And I think Isaiah Satania and Trell Harris are both number two guys. And I think Livingston is the guy who you can project if everything goes well. He can be your number one guy. He's big, he's fast, he can moss guys. That simple. He was a dude when I was watching Texas leading up to this past year's game in October. He was the guy in the receiving corps that easily scared me the most. And I think OU may have gotten a dude. I like him a lot. He's huge and he mosses guys. That in this day and age, that's what you need at the receiver position. OU hasn't had a guy like that in a really long time, and he's got real production. Real production.
Yeah, I don't see it that way as much as you do. I think he's big. I don't think he's very fast. I think for his size, he's got okay speed. Texas seemed to think that he could go deep, but he would disappear in some big games. Really nice touchdown catching against Ohio State.
He would disappear in big games along with the entirety of the Texas offense.
No, he's a big play guy. I mean, he doesn't strike me when I watch him play. He doesn't seem like he should be a big play guy. I mean, he averaged almost 18 yards per catch, which was fourth in the SEC. Granted, he had very few catches, only had 29 catches. So to compare that, Brendan Thompson had 57 and averaged 18 and a half yards per catch. So, I mean, that the production. So I just, that's why I had him a little bit lower. Cause to me, Trell Harris is more of a guy that can have more of an impact as a receiver than him.
Parker Livingston can make catches when the pass is not perfect. I don't think Trell Harris can do that.
It makes me wonder if they're going to use Livingston kind of like they used Jaren Kanak this year. I don't know.
What? Livingston
I
is he's just going to be an outside guy. Him and Trell Harris are their outside guys.
Yeah.
I like Livingston. I think he's like far and away their best pickup so far in the portal, like by a long shot, by a huge long shot. So
yeah, when I went, I'm just gonna watch a lot of their stuff. He doesn't jump off the screen as much as I would have liked him to.
Huge catch radius, big play guy. I like him. I watch Indiana, and yeah, I know this is a super low com denom comparison, but watch Indiana and just like how freaking good Charlie Becker is. That guy's awesome. He's so good. Him and Livingston are like the same player.
All right, those are our top 11, or not top 11, our rankings for the most important, like where they're going to be importance-wise in 2026. Yeah, okay. That good stuff. And yeah, if Isaiah Satania comes back, then that's even better. I don't, until something's done, I just will like, oh, well.
Yeah, I know you're more of the, like when it's fully official. At this point in time, if he goes to the NFL, he has left OU super high and dry. Like it is him and Kip. If they both still go to the NFL after this, that's BS stuff. Like just go, make a decision.
I mean, I tend to agree with you, but I mean, that's what Jim Nagy's job is. I mean, their job is to figure that out. And so, yeah, I mean, we should probably, well, I guess I don't know if there's a deadline to declare for the NFL draft. I know that the portal ends, I believe, on the 16th, which is this Friday. So we got 5 days left of the portal. And so I suppose we'll find out. I mean, and who they get or don't get out of the portal in the next 5, unless we get a announcement one way or another between Kip Lewis and Satania. I don't understand why Mateer would go to the draft. That doesn't make it either way. He needs to get better. He's not a very good player right now.
At this point, there's no way Mateer is leaving. Like that would be even worse. That would be the biggest like high and dry thing because with no spring portal window, like OU would have nothing.
Like he
Rookie
doesn't
would.
like an NFL team wouldn't. Yes, you're right, but like he doesn't even project that well to the NFL. Like his size is not that great. His mechanics suck. He's scattershot with his accuracy. So like I don't like why would an NFL coach be like, oh man, that guy's got a lot of a lot
Because
of projected talent.
it's just a really bad quarterback class. I mean, a team is going to waste a first round pick on Ty Simpson. So, like we'll see.
All right, so next up on the show, that was meaty. A lot of stuff there. I know we can talk about the guys that are leaving, and so there's a lot more of these, and we can go a little bit quicker through this. So what I wanted to do for the outgoing transfer portal players, since again there's so many, there's last I counted there's 29, and I could be off, but 18 on offense, 11 on defense. I want to use these categories to put them into buckets to talk about them, and we don't need to talk about all of them if we don't want to, but we can mention all of them. So 3 categories. One, hey, no big deal. No big deal that they're transferring. Second category, that's disappointing. As in, like, yeah, like I wasn't really sure if he would do a whole lot next year, but also I had some thoughts that he may be able to contribute. And then obviously the third one is I did not want that guy to go. Did not want that guy to transfer. Do not want to see him leave, and he left. So those are the 3 categories. And look at my notes. This could be kind of fun, but also whatever. I know I wrote this down. I know I did. Okay, so where do you want to start? Do you want to go with the guys that we didn't want to? Do you want to go from the no big deals, or do we? I'm trying to think. If I was a listener,
Okay. Here's what I will say. My no big deal pool is by far the biggest pool on here.
yeah, me too.
Like by a
Hey,
long shot.
so let's start with the guys that we did not want to transfer. How about that?
Okay.
Like, hey, I don't want those guys because that's going to be the smallest one probably.
This is a very small pool here.
All right, so I'll start. I mean, we're going to have a lot of the same names. Actually, okay, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys on my list.
I have 3 guys.
Oh, okay. So as I have more, I'll start. Number 1, this is in no particular order. This is just what I got. So number 1, I did not want this guy to transfer, Logan Howland. I did not want Logan Howland to transfer. Talked about the tackle depth is not great. That's a guy that made 6 starts in 2024 at a tackle position. I know he lost his job. He was beaten out by Fasusi. Clearly, he wants to go somewhere and play more. He's a good depth piece. I know he had some injury issues, but Logan Howland's a guy that I would say I did not want that guy to transfer.
Okay. He is also on my list of guys I did not want to transfer. And of course, I was wrong. I have 4 guys, not 3 guys. But yeah, that's because offensive line depth right now is very precarious, especially at the offensive tackle position. It would have been nice to have him. But this is how it works this day and age. If you, especially like depth guys on playoff teams, I think it has started to show like there's a trend here. Depth guys on playoff teams get picked up just very quickly. Teams just and Howland is going to be able to go and be a starter somewhere, and that wouldn't have been the case here. But it'd been really nice to have him around. Although I will say, because I did think hard about having him just in the disappointed category, only because through his time on campus so far, you cannot count on him being healthy. And I think you can say that a lot about a lot of the offensive line guys who have transferred out. They just, I would say, weren't even healthy more than half the time they were at OU. Like, I mean, it was a majority of the time that they were banged up, and Howland's one of those guys, and they're with OU. Like, I don't blame them at all if they just want to just say thanks but no thanks to all of these guys who have been super banged up. And just looking at the portal departures, it kind of seems like that's what they were doing.
Sure. All right, who else you got on your I did not want this guy to transfer list?
Okay, Howland was my only guy on the offensive side of the ball who was in that bucket. Moving over to the defense, number 1 for me is Marcus Strong. This is their biggest departure so far, the one that hurts the most. Look at that defensive tackle depth right now. It's not super rosy. Doesn't look great. You got Stone and Jackson, who I think is arguably the best defensive tackle tandem in the SEC, maybe in the country going into next season, which is great. You love that. But man, replacing Grayson Halton is a huge deal. Like I've said it, like I have a love affair with that guy. That guy's gonna be a 10-year NFL dude. He's gonna he's gonna get a paycheck in the NFL for a long time. He's gonna be really really hard to replace. And as of right now, you're relying on what freshman? I mean Trent Wilson,
Nigel Smith,
Nigel
Trent
Smith, guys
Wilson,
who haven't. And
Jacob
so
Henry.
and so you're talking about they need another body at defensive tackle in the portal. That's probably gonna be number one right now. They need a starter level, like not a jag defensive tackle right now, and that's only a week left in the portal window. That's gonna be pretty tough. They're gonna have to pay up for that pretty
Yeah.
clearly, and that's something. Do not pinch pennies. Go get someone. This is like super important. You cannot rely on the guys that they have in house right now. They need another body.
Yeah, Todd Bates is a couple of freshmen coming into true freshmen, but I mean, come on, unless they're David Stone or Jaden Jackson. Obviously, Marcus Strong's on my list as well. It's just shocking. I mean, the guy was in line to play a ton of snaps next year. I don't. I mean, I guess maybe he wants to go play even more snaps than he would
I'm sure
otherwise. But
money. I'm sure Clemson is paying him a lot of money.
yeah,
So
yeah, sure.
but that's one of the things that's tough. Because yeah, that's what like OU rotates at defensive tackle a ton, and so that's he was he was going to be on the field a lot this upcoming season. He's a big body. He's tough to move. Yeah, OU needed him. That one hurts by far the most, I think, of any of their departures so far.
Yeah, I agree. That's the biggest one. Next guy on my list, and we've already talked about him a little bit, Davon Jordan. He just, I mean, I'm sure he wants to play more. Simple as that. I mean, the guy had a lot of positive reviews in preseason, fall camp, and everything. And for the first part of the year, it's like I don't get it. And then all of a sudden, he started flashing in the really important parts of the season. And he's a nice player, true freshman, another true freshman guy that ended up being a nice player at corner. So definitely did not want to see Davon Jordan go.
He is also on my list of guys I did not want to see go. Corner depth right now is not good. It's not good at all. And just with the guys that they have leaving, and he did a lot of good stuff in the second half of the season. And I don't think he was ever going to be a starter here, but I think he was always going to be just like a really nice depth guy that you could put out there, just based off how productive he was in the second half in the short burst that we saw him. He's going to Baylor, probably going to play 800 snaps next year at Baylor as a starter. You can't blame him. He wants to go play and start, and probably going to make some more money too.
All right, next guy on your list. You only have one
guy
more?
On my list, the last guy on my I did not want him to transfer list, Sammy Omosigho. I think right now in the linebacker room, you got Kip Lewis and Cole Sullivan, and then you're really just sort of projecting after that. Like, I think at this point in time, it's safe to assume, or I think the default should be that Heineke is not going to get an extra year. Chambliss didn't get an extra year. Heineke's not going to get an extra year. So they have basically two linebackers. They're different
scenarios.
but it's the NCAA does not hand out extra years like they used to. Like if it was 2 years ago, Heineke maybe would get it, but now it's pretty tough. So, I think it begs the question: why would you even listen to anything the SEC says? Nothing that they do is binding or matters at all. So you could probably just play anyway, and it wouldn't matter. But
the SEC, you mean the NCAA?
Oh yes, did I say the SEC? I meant the NCAA. Sorry.
Yeah.
So Omosigho, I mean, if you're the third linebacker in the system, you play a lot. Omosigho played a lot this year.
I know.
And it also does it that this would have been his fourth year in Brent Venables' defense. I think a lot of the time this is a guy who is super athletic. He makes splash plays, but I also think that he gets lost every now and then. Like people have made the point that a lot of the times when OU gave up explosive plays this year, Omosigho was on the field, but also he would make splash plays, and he was experienced, and they need guys there right now, and you know what? It's sort of the same bit as like a Davon Jordan, where He's going to go somewhere. He's going to go to a power conference school. He's probably going to start and he's going to play like 700 snaps, like way more than he would here. And he's probably going to make more money. So it is what it is. He was, like I said, really hard to keep depth pieces on playoff teams, like exceptionally hard.
Yep, also on my list, and then I have an additional player on my did not want to transfer list, and it's just depth wise. Jaden Hardy, the safety depth is not very good, and losing him makes it even worse. And right now you're looking at Peyton Bowen, Boganowski, Reggie Powers, and Omarion Robinson, who like hasn't really played much.
And
So
it sounds like
and
they
then a bunch of
really like
freshmen.
him. Sounds like they really, really like Amarian Robinson. And so,
All right, well, I mean, Jaden Hardy's played a lot of snaps the last 2 years. I mean, he's made some plays, he's made some not great plays, but he's a depth piece that's been in this system for a couple of seasons. So I'd add him to my list because that depth at safety, I don't love it right now.
all right. Well, I can
And then
start
I'd
off.
say the yeah.
Well, I
What?
said
Go ahead. Sorry.
Jaden Hardy is on my. I'm disappointed that he's leaving.
Okay.
And it's because of that depth piece, but I don't think and like my thoughts on Jaden Hardy have been, I think, clearly communicated on this podcast. I like that he's a depth guy who you can throw out there and like cataclysmic things will not happen. But I think he's mostly a jag.
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy that you can replace. It's
Yeah,
just
they
will they?
can
Will they?
they can find a guy, I don't know. They could probably find another Colorado State like guy who can come in and fill the exact same role that he did and be okay.
Okay, so that's under the that's disappointing category. So this is guys that you know, yeah, right in the middle where it's like, yeah, maybe they could have done something. I got a couple here that uh, just it's more like emotional of like, yeah, maybe like I'll start again, no particular order. And this guy was, I'll say this to the end because this guy was also in my no big deal category. So I'll save that one. I'll start with, I mean, this guy didn't do anything this past year because I guess he was allegedly hurt, but Taylor Tatum, I mean, definitely expected for him to go to the portal, but I do think he's got talent and it's just been not realized at Oklahoma. So, especially with the running back depth being not great, if Taylor Tatum was still in this room and he could be healthy, which he maybe clearly he's maybe one of the guys that is not healthy, so maybe it doesn't matter. I put him on my that's disappointing list just because he showed flashes, and I'd like to see if he could hold on to the football in a non Seth Luttrell offense. So, but we never got the chance to see that. Now he's going. Where's he going? I know he signed
Michigan.
somewhere. Oh, Michigan. Interesting. So we'll see what he does at Michigan. So Taylor Tatum's in my that's disappointing list.
All right. I will talk about Taylor Tatum later, but I will stay on the offense with my that's disappointing list. And this is more of an emotional thing for me as well. I'm going to say Jaden Gibson. And this is full emotional for me. I think Jaden Gibson's career is in earnest is likely over. I think he got way too hurt and he's going to South Carolina. I hope he does well, but I am bitterly disappointed that we never got to see a healthy Jaden Gibson after the second half of the 2023 season where he's just making a lot of big plays and he looked like a guy who is poised to break out. He has the patella, injury in his knee, and it seems like kind of maybe some other stuff has happened that soured his position on the team as well. Um, him getting the portal, it's not unexpected. I think his productive days are likely behind him, but emotionally, it's just like disappointing. Officially closed the book on Jaden Gibson. I think that was he was like the last guy that they got in Brent Venables' first recruiting class. And he was a guy that I really really liked. Looked awful as a true freshman, like unplayably awful as a true freshman. And then he got so much better in the offseason, year over year, made a ton of plays in 2023. So I'm just bummed out that we never got to see a fully healthy Jaden Gibson as like a top 2 receiver in the offense.
I'll go a little bit quicker through these next three guys. I'm going to combine them all together into my that's disappointing. These are all offensive linemen. This is all simply because the O lineman depth right now is not great. But Klinko, Troy Everett, and Isaiah Dent. It's all depth related. They've technically maybe replaced Everett with Nita, but I know Becklinko didn't really do much this year. He came over from Stanford or wherever, and he played a lot, and clearly I just didn't really fit in. But a guy that's played football before in his depth, so those three guys, I'll just combine them all into one, just because I, again, not don't love the depth on the offensive line right now.
That's fair. Dent is my last on the offensive side of the ball. That is disappointing. Um, Backlenko and Everett's not healthy. That guy will not play. Like he's done. He's finished. So I don't think wherever he goes, he's going to be a shell of his best self. Backlenko, that's a guy that you can replace easily. He was exactly kind of what, and he played a little bit this year. I thought he held up pretty decently in pass protection when he was in there, and probably was pretty mediocre at everything else. It's a Bill Beanbo offensive line. He can find a guy who can be out there and be passable in pass protection, which is what Backlinko was. This is a guy who was a starter at Stanford before coming over here and being a depth piece. This is file this guy into impossible to keep depth guys on playoff teams type deal. He's going to go and be a starter somewhere, probably in the ACC or like the Big 12, and he'll be perfectly fine.
Do you have anybody else on your that's disappointing list?
Not on the offensive side of the ball, but I do on defense.
Because I only have one more name.
Okay, I already said Jaden Hardy on the disappointing side. I got two other guys on defense that are disappointing.
All right, since you have more than me, can you combine them, or does it make sense to do one at a time?
They play different positions, so
Okay.
how about I just start? I'm going to start with Gentry Williams. It's disappointing. This is more of like the emotional thing. I think at this point with Gentry, you from like a dollars and cents standpoint relative to production, you have to move on. He's too injured. And I thought there were times in the first half of the season before he got injured for the season again that he looked like the old Gentry Williams. Maybe not fully, but I thought he looked pretty good in the first 4, 5, 6 games of the season. He gets hurt against South Carolina. We don't see him yet again. And so I think at this point in time, even if you were to bring Gentry back, you just have to assume we're only going to get about 4 or 5 games out of this guy. Just because, and if he goes somewhere else and is healthy, hats off, that's great. But what he's been at Oklahoma, I just think you have to cut bait at this point in time just because of his health. But it's still disappointing because when he has been healthy, he has been quite good.
All right, and who's the other guy?
The other guy is Kobe McKenzie. Disappointing. Kind of the same bit because I think Kobe's just a good player. He's a good player, and he's going to go and he's going to be the alpha, like big time starter on Northwestern's defense next season. I think that's pretty cool. But Kobe, I like Kobe a lot. I'm disappointed he's leaving, but it makes sense.
Yeah, I'll just say this guy didn't play. Nobody ever talks about him, but because the safety room is kind of lacking, I put Marcus Wimberly in here. He was a blue chip. He was a 4-star prospect. Has a year in the program, learned the defense. You would imagine he's gone. I don't know if he's going to be anything. And then a guy that was going to almost be in my no big deal category, but I kept putting him in disappointing, was Giovanni Gibson. And it just seems like his preseason fall camp injury, either that changed his trajectory or all the stuff we heard about him was BS. So I think
know. Yeah, because I waffled on this one too. It's disappointing in the sense that he didn't turn out to be what they thought he was. But I have him in the no big deal because it looks like Jermichael Carter is going to stay. And if you ask me to choose between those two guys, I'd prefer to keep Jermichael Carter based off of what I saw this year.
And I'd say Kobe McKenzie probably. I actually had him in the no big deal, but I almost put him in disappointing. It was no big deal. Just in 9 months from now, depending on how the linebacker room looks, I mean, it could definitely be didn't want that guy to transfer, but just kind of his style, and I don't know. It just kind of seemed like his numbers were pretty good this year. He had like one of his best seasons, but it didn't really seem like he made a whole lot of impactful plays, especially later in the year. And he's injured.
Well, because he's not a huge, like he is a middle linebacker thumper who is there to make sure that the running back doesn't get further than 3 yards down the field. And in that sense, he's pretty good at it. And then I think you also have to, because he got banged up. I think it was in the Ole Miss game. And then he played way less after that.
Yeah.
I don't think he played in the Tennessee game, and then when he came back for Alabama, Missouri, and LSU, I think he was still kind of banged up a little bit, wasn't moving extremely well. And so, yeah, it's another thing. He's going to go and he's going to start every single game for Northwestern next year at middle linebacker, probably very rarely come off the field. Same could not be said about his opportunity at Oklahoma. If he would have come back, would have probably played his highest share of snaps in his career this upcoming season. But it still would have been way lower than what he got at Northwestern. So it's the nature of things now these days.
All right, and of course, the no big deal list is huge. We
It's
can't
huge.
spend time. I mean, let's here. How about this? All how about on the? Let's go over the ones that there's no reason to really spend much time on. Defensively, Malik Hawkins, Ciola, Lolohe. I mentioned McKenzie, um, Kendall Dolby. What could have been? Clearly, he wants to play more. I have Gentry Williams on my list here just because he's only played in 7 games over the last 2 seasons. You covered it. He's always injured, but I understand it is disappointing because you want him to be more. All right, so that's a few for me. I got obviously more. Oh, how about that? I'll add a couple more. Like offensive line, Jake Taylor, Jacob Sexton. Can't stay healthy, man. They're
Those
just
guys are their bodies are completely gone. So I don't think there was not a single time those guys were healthy in their careers at Oklahoma. Even if I hope they go on and I hope they're successful wherever they go. But that's one thing where OU just cannot bring them back. They're not able to stay healthy. So those are big time, no big deals for me.
hold on, just real quick. Jake Taylor played 8 games in 2022, then play over the next 3 seasons played in only 8 games. Jake Sexton 10 games in 2022. We had on the podcast like it'd be great if these are like the 2 bookend tackles of the future. Sexton played 10 games in 2022, played 7 in 2023, and he's been injured the past 2 years. Just so I'll throw it over to you. Who do you want to throw out there?
I mean, let me just go down the list of receivers here.
I got them in the whole category.
Literally, yeah, I do too. Zion Reagans, Giovanni Gibson, Ivan Carrion, Zion Kearney, Josiah Martin, KJ Daniels. I mean, that's just a big old list of nothing right there. Those guys just couldn't hack it. They're just, and that just shows you. I think you going down that list there. Emmett Jones should not be part of this program anymore because of that. He has been. I think in terms of high school recruiting, I mean, he's got a 100% bust rate right now.
So that's what I wanted to focus on. The Jones's first class when he got here, those 4 players, Reagans, Carrion, Kearney, and Daniels were all in that class. And now they're gone.
Class. What an awful class of receivers.
Reagans played in all of them 2 seasons. Reagans played in 15 games, caught 10 balls. All of it was in 24. Didn't have a catch this year. Carrion played in 22 games, only had 12 catches in 22 games. Kearney, 10 catches, did have that touchdown in the bowl game last year. KJ Daniels never played. It's just terrible. Absolutely brutal. And then throw in Jacob Snyder, who was a walk-on. He's also transferring.
Who? Yeah, I don't know who that is.
Yeah.
And I just, and then go back to, Elijah Thomas couldn't get on the field. Manny Choice didn't get on the field at all. So those are the only 2 receivers I'm pretty sure in that class, unless I'm missing someone. So I think it's like the futility of the high school with Emmett Jones, the high school recruiting. I mean, it smacks you in the face with how incompetent it's been. So
I have 4 guys coming in for this current class.
And so like there was because I feel like our first taste of Emmett Jones was great. Like the receivers from 22 to 23 made a huge leap, got a lot better. But you have to say, like, it was guys who had played a lot of football. Drake Stoops is already a really good player. Jalil Farouk was already a good player. They brought in Andrell Anthony and Nick Anderson, was healthy for the only time in his career in like a 7 or 8 game stretch, and he was terrific. So we were like, great, Emmett Jones he's proven himself to be a really good pickup. Since then, he has, for an offensive staff that employs DeMarco Murray and Joe John Finley, he has easily, since he's been hired, pound for pound, been the biggest failure of all three of those guys, I think. I mean, which is compared to DeMarco Murray, that's saying something. And so going into this year, this upcoming season, that's like kind of that gives me the biggest heartburn is that because I'm always like, can Oklahoma do better than what they have? And at those two positions, receiver and running back coach, it's an undeniable yes. Of course they can do better, and they refuse to do so, and it's frustrating.
All right, we'll keep going. The two tight ends, Carson Kent, Caden Helms, out the door. That's no big deal. Carson Kent was a non-factor. Caden Helms, good to
Caden
stay
Helms
healthy.
going to Minnesota. They have
Yeah.
Minnesota's got has a history of getting a little bit of production out of leftover Jag parts for OU. So
And last, I have two other guy, the two kind of big ones from the offensive side. Have I missed any? I mean, it's Michael Hawkins and Javante Barnes, both on the no big deal. And I mean, I don't know.
do we know where
Yeah,
Hawkins is going yet?
yeah, West Virginia.
Oh, West Virginia. That's an interesting. Oh, so he's going to a coach Rich Rodriguez, who is college football famous for creating a shotgun triple option offense that's super effective. And and Michael Hawkins is going to go and be the quarterback for that. It makes sense.
We'll see. I mean, I've obviously seen enough of him. His arm is an absolute rocket launcher. It's
He's got
ridiculous how strong of
it's
an arm.
a
Like, I still think he should be.
unbelievable arm.
The guy should get on a mound and see if he can pitch. I mean, he's got to be able to throw like 100 miles an hour. I mean, ball just jumps out of his hands. The problem is everything else about him is pretty. Albeit nice, below average. And
Like
man, he was so bad in that Kent State game.
God, he's terrible. He was awful. And he's really fast with straight line speed. Like really, like he's a long strider. If he gets into the
Yes,
open field, you're like, gosh, this guy can run. Can't make anybody miss. He's got zero wiggle,
kind of
which
like Jackson Arnold in that way. Like Jackson Arnold can actually move pretty quickly, straight line, but
but
he could
then
not
but
really. Yeah,
it's which is weird that he doesn't have any wiggle because then when he does his weird little arm angles when he throws the ball, it's like it's from a mechanical standpoint, it's really ugly, but he looks super athletic when he's doing it. And it's like, how are you that fast and that athletic with zero wiggle? I don't really get it. Um, he's not a good player. Not a good player. I just and so we'll see if him going to West Virginia and him being in an offense that's more tailored to his strengths will help out. But
yeah. We'll see if
I
Rich Rod can harness that raw talent
for
because there
as
is some raw talent there.
oh he's got a lot of raw talent. It's just for a guy who a lot of people inside the program were just like super high on. I think him ending up at West Virginia, like to me, is not a huge surprise. Like honestly, I thought he was going to end up at like a North Texas type deal, or like where Jackson Arnold is at UNLV, which is kind of like I was sort of right about that. I thought Jackson Arnold would end up at North Texas, but UNLV kind of seems like the right progression there. But yeah, Michael Hawkins, a guy who when they first signed him, like as a junior in high school, I was like, oh, this guy's not any good at all. But then I watched his senior stuff, in Texas high school, and I was like, he's making a lot of plays, and he's like had a really good season. I was like, so maybe there's something there. Um, but yeah, he's not a very good player, and so it's not a big deal that he's moving on.
And finally, Javante Barnes. Much has been said. The question I have is who will take Javante Barnes' place as DeMarco Murray's favorite guy? Marcus Major had that role for a year or two. Then it was Javante Barnes.
We already know it's Blaylock.
Blaylock is the guy.
Yeah, it's Blaylock, even though
Okay.
he's kind of a mega jag, but that's okay.
All right, guys. That's that's a lot of meat and potatoes on all the transfer portal stuff over the last 3 weeks or so. What the heck is my rundown? There it is. Any? Let's see. We talked about during that. We talked about needs. I mean, you mentioned we need OU needs a defensive lineman, D tackle inside.
They need a D tackle or two. They need a safety. They need another running back. Probably one more tight
Another
end.
offensive lineman would be nice.
Yep, an offensive lineman or two. So we'll see. They got a week to figure it out. At this point in time, if they get anybody who is like projected as like a guy who can produce for them this year, I think that'd be a big win. It kind of seems like they had their plan, they executed it to the best of their ability, they got who they wanted outside of maybe a guy or two, and now you're just trying to find warm bodies. And I think a lot of the time they probably would prefer guys who have 3 or 4 years of time left. That's probably what they're looking for, more of like younger guys. And so we'll see, but I'm sure there's going to be other guys. But they do need to, if at all possible, they need to find a starting level defensive tackle in the next week. Have to.
Can be tough. Other than that, briefly, you mentioned Jason. We talked about Jason Witten a little bit. I don't know if there's anything much really to add right now. We don't know anything. I mean, it's
You know what? I'm going to steal a bit that Tom Fernelli does when a team hires a head coach. He always says, X is a great hire for this school. I have no idea if it will work out. Which is like intellectually honest. It's true. I think Witten's a good hire. I think it's a good hire. Like, it's the tight end room. Like we were gonna go through and talk about like, oh, this guy's gonna be a great tight end coach. I don't freaking know. Nobody knows. To me, it seems like a pretty good hire. I have no idea if it'll work out.
Right. No, I agree. I mean, and why does it seem like that? Well, because one, it's Jason Witten. The guy, is he in the Hall of Fame yet? I'm sure at some point he'll be, if he's not already.
He will be, I'm
He's
sure.
definitely in the Cowboys Hall of Fame. Everyone saw him play tight end for a million years with the Cowboys. So you would imagine, okay, the guy knows how to play tight end well. So, and maybe that can help with recruiting as well. I will say when he was doing TV, he was bad. He was awful. Wait, was it him or
which is why he's not doing TV anymore.
was it him or I mean, I know Drew Brees was not good either when he had that first 10. Maybe I'm getting him mixed up with Drew Brees. Witten did do like 1 year of Monday Night Football or something,
I feel
right?
like Witten did some, yeah. I don't know if he was, or maybe he did it. No, didn't he do just like a couple of games and then he was just like, I'm out?
Maybe that's what it was. As I say this, I probably should have had more precise thoughts on that. So I'm going to strike that. I can't remember if he was good or bad.
I do think it's it's a pickup. I think, his son is a 5-star recruit in the 2027 class. Everybody projecting that he is going to be coming to OU now. You would hope that they didn't make that hire just to get a linebacker, which is, maybe the third or fourth least important position on the field in football. But also I do think that this can only help with tight end recruiting. Like, I know that there was a story on, I think it was Sooner Scoop, that on his very first day as tight ends coach, he called the number 1 tight end recruit in the country for 2027 and was like, "What's up, dude? You up?" So we'll see if we'll see how what kind of dividends that pays. But like I said, I think if you had to just choose one coach to relieve of their duties, I know Joe John Finley has been sort of like the narrative, like whipping boy of the last 2 years. He's the guy that you need to sacrifice at the altar. But of the 3 guys who are on the chopping block, he was the one that they needed to get rid of the least.
Yeah, I agree. And by the way, all you Dallas Cowboys fans that listen to the show, I'm sure there's some are probably like, "Come on, don't you remember?" So I'm getting reminded of this. So Witten retired, joined the Monday Night Football booth for a year, and I remember, I don't have any details, but I just recall thinking that he was not very good. And then he left that and then went back to the Cowboys and played more. I totally forgot about that.
That's right.
Oh man. Okay, so there's that. Anything else portal-wise that you find interesting? You mentioned Jackson Arnold. We talked about Michael Hawkins and Javonte Barnes going to Kentucky, which we'll talk about Kentucky. Kentucky is technically, in my DeMarco Murray project I was doing, Kentucky is actually, over the last 5 years, been a better running back team running room than Oklahoma. Slightly.
Well, Kentucky's had like, in that time frame though, I think Kentucky's had a single season where like they had like a really great running attack. Didn't Ray Davis go to Kentucky? Yeah.
Yeah. And I believe he was a transfer.
Mm-hmm.
So, and because he was at Vanderbilt for a year and then transferred from there. So,
trying to think. It does look like that from all available reports, OU did kick the tires on Cam Coleman. Or just like, hey, are you? And all circumstantial evidence suggests that Cam Coleman was just not interested in being an Oklahoma Sooner. So with Cam Coleman, it sounds like it's going to be one of the 3 Texas schools, Longhorns, A&M, or Texas Tech, and I hope it's Texas Tech.
Yeah, if I'm Cam Coleman, I wouldn't want to go to OU either because I'd want to go somewhere where there's a lot more consistency with the guy throwing you the ball. Like, can this guy get me the
That's fair.
ball a lot? I mean, he just played with Jackson Arnold last year,
I
and
think
it's just like, yeah,
if he wants 15 targets a game, he should go to Texas Tech because he's gonna lead the country in receiving if he goes to Texas Tech, and he's gonna. So I think like in terms of like production, that's probably going to be his best, and that's where he's going to make the most money too. I do think he'll be really good if he goes to Texas or Texas A&M, but I think he will. His numbers, his production will not be as good as if he goes to Texas Tech. And also, I would, A&M and Texas are both on OU's schedule next year, and I would prefer not to see Cam Coleman.
other than that, obviously we took a bunch of time off, so we didn't have a chance to pick as many bowl games and playoff games as we typically do in the past. Somehow, based on our last show, which was a long time ago, in our picks, we both ended up with the same exact record, picks against the spread this year. And technically, there's one game left we can pick if we want. I don't know if we're gonna have a
I mean,
show before the national
we
title
should
game.
if it's because you and I are going to be on opposite ends of it, so we might as well pick it so we can see who wins for the year.
We're gonna be on opposite ends of it.
Probably, I'm assuming you're going to be on Indiana.
Well, it's 7.5 right now, and there's a reason why it's 7.5 because that it makes you think. I mean, I was on Miami against Ole Miss,
As was I.
which there's no proof of that, but just take our word for it. But I mean, I was not on. I mean, I was on Ohio State against Miami because they're just like,
As
well,
was
everyone's
I.
telling me Ohio State's great, and you watch it and you're like, well, this can be a whole nother discussion where like you see these teams in the playoff like Miami and the way their defense played against Ohio State, and then I mean, an easy one is Indiana and the way their defense played against Alabama, who Alabama looked like just a I don't know, a MAC team. That's not fair. I mean, Alabama, that game was something in the first half, and then
That game was
Indiana.
the best. The best comparison of that game was that Indiana looked like a prime Nick Saban team playing against some random 8-4 team from the SEC. That's what that looked like. Where it was just like they just kind of were just
So
sort
well
of
coached.
they're so well
They
coached.
don't make mistakes.
It's
And Indiana's defense doesn't have all this crazy havoc and people going everywhere and all this stuff like Venables. That's his style. And guess what? Indiana's defense doesn't do. They don't give up big plays, and they make a bunch of good plays on top of it. And that's watching this playoff. Yes, Oklahoma's defense was terrific this year, but they allowed that Alabama offense to get 6 explosives in that playoff game. Indiana didn't allow. I think they allowed maybe one. No, I think they allowed 0. And so I guess and something we can talk about in the offseason, it's like Venables is not going to change his style. It is what it is what it is. But man, as much as you get from that style of defense, it opens you up for these things that you just shouldn't be opened up against because you can do all these great things. Indiana, Miami's defense, I had a pretty BS schedule they played against. All of a sudden, Miami's defense is getting all these sacks in the playoff against the best teams they're playing. Why couldn't Oklahoma's defensive line get all these sacks? I just that's the question. I don't know.
I mean, there's a lot there. Oh, okay, so first of all, Miami is classic example of they just got hot at the right time. Miami is still the team that lost to SMU and Louisville. Like they're like Miami's defense has been good all season, but I think compared to the rhetoric, it's been a little overrated. They've looked in the playoffs on defense like how everybody talked about them during the regular season, which is it's frustrating. It's frustrating watching it. And I hate Miami, hate that program, hate that. It's just it makes me sick that Miami is like back in the national title before like OU has been able to get there. Like Miami has been a joke of a program for the last 20 years, a total joke. They have 0 fan support. Their entire fan base are just fair weather garbage fans. Everything they've gotten this year, they don't deserve at all. They are complete product of the NIL universe, complete product of it. But give them credit. They've played extremely well. And it's like, their road in the playoffs has been very difficult so far. They had to go on the road to play Texas A&M in a very hostile environment. Then they had to play, I think the team that had the highest ceiling in all of college football, Ohio State, and they sort of toyed with them a little bit at times, and then they had to go and then they beat the best team in the SEC, Ole Miss, and to get to the national title game, and they've won in a bunch of different ways. And you gotta give them credit, and then they're being rewarded. Get to play a freaking home game, a literal home game for the national championship. And I just F off with that crap. Get out of here. I'm tired of that crap.
Yeah, and it's 7.5. Obviously, that's that for a reason, because you want to get that buyback, and it's Miami's defense. But yeah, I'll probably end up on Indiana. I grabbed Oregon plus, it was 3.5, 4, just
I
because
was on Oregon.
it was Dan Lanning catching points, and I love Sig. Everyone loves, but it's like I like Dan Lanning too. And the last 2 years, I mean, it's just Oregon's kind of getting having to play like the best team, in these playoffs settings. And so I guess I'm gonna, even though it's not a strict lesson, but you're gonna give me Mario Cristobal versus Sig, even though it's a weird number. It's 7.5. I They want you to take Miami. They want you to. That's why they're giving the hook. So I'll probably end up on Indiana, and I'll be curious to see if that line moves. Typically, these lines don't move a whole lot. It's just they set it and it kind of just sits there, 7 and a hook. So it's just been a pleasure to watch Indiana just play. I mean, they're so good. And well, I'm one of the more annoying things over the last handful of weeks is all of the people love to bash on the SEC. That was you and I love to bash on the USC. Like, and it sucks because you look at the bowl record and you can use that and you can't really argue against it because the SEC has not been good in the bowl games this year. And then it's like, well, all right, well, I guess you have to just kind of take it. Well,
I mean,
you can argue against it, but people are going to be like,
well,
look at the bowl games.
Taking bowl results as like what conference is stronger is stupid. It's always been dumb. It's always been stupid. There have been many years where the SEC was by far the best conference, not even close, and the Big 12 had a way better bowl record than they did. Like, it doesn't freaking matter.
See, but I mostly agree with you. But when you have those actual stats and scoreboard, it's difficult to argue against it because scoreboard's typically the argument that wins the argument.
And people can do that, but it's low com denom stuff. It is. It's content.
You got to get nuanced.
And also you have to, like, this is one area where I will be a little sympathetic to all of this stuff. Listen, like I think the SEC is pretty clearly the best conference. It doesn't have prime Saban and 2019 LSU anymore and like all of that stuff. And I do think that going forward in this NIL landscape until everybody sort of gets the hang of everything, the Big Ten is probably going to have the more dominant teams because the Big Ten is not competing for recruits intra-conference like the SEC is anymore. Now, all of that said, I don't care about the SEC. I care about Oklahoma. The SEC can be the worst conference in the country for all I care, as long as Oklahoma's doing it. I don't give a crap. But what I will say is the SEC, in their 15 to 20 years of obvious dominance, were super douchey about it. And the SEC, with that douchiness, has fostered in a lot of changes to college football that suck, that right now feel like they suck. And people want to pile on the SEC and say you're not as dominant anymore and they're having fun with it. Have your fun. It's totally understandable to me. The SEC does have some comeuppance coming to their part for just being massive douchebags for the last 20 years. Dead serious. Sure. I mean, they do. Like, Greg Sankey's massive douchebag. Massive douche, and people want to dunk on him.
Well, no, I'm not going to argue with you. But I'm more interested in just actual, like, the season and stuff and, like, explain it. It's all year long. The two best teams in college football were Ohio State and Indiana. And regardless of conference. They could have been in the ACC, the Mountain West. Doesn't matter. They just happened to be in the Big Ten. And you could I think Oregon was still kind of a bit of a paper tiger, but they were very good. And the SEC, but top to bottom, we can go look at it. I mean, it's week to week, it's more difficult because there's a better chance that you're going to play a really tough team or a tougher team than you're going to see in the ACC or the Big Ten. I think the only way that we'd be able to really use the scoreboard as a measurement is if we get to a system where when the season ends, when the regular season ends, whether the conference title games, which hopefully go away, is that we go the next week, we go right into whatever the playoff is. And there's not this weird break. There's not this whole thing where there's the bowl game matchups and people opt out. That's when we can finally start to get the consistent boom, 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 because then that mimics more of what the regular season is. I didn't look this up before the podcast, but I believe the SEC against other conferences, other Power Four conferences in 2025 regular season, I believe had a pretty good record.
Did very well. Like, pretty clearly who is better. And, like, when you
Like
go
that's more that to me, that's a better indicator of the conference from top to bottom. But just because Indiana, like, yeah, Indiana's the best team now. I mean, they always were the best team. They're awesome. Doesn't matter. And the only reason why Indiana is the best team is because they hired Kurt Signetti. Syracuse could have freaking hired Kurt Signetti, and now Syracuse might be the best team in college football in the ACC. It's funny to me how the Big Ten wants to prop themselves up, where right now, like two of their best teams aren't even like really the teams that are always good. Like Indiana's randomly good because of Kurt Signetti, and Oregon used to be in the Pac-12. I mean, Michigan was okay this year. Penn State was down this year. They'll get back up, but it's just kind of interesting how it just tells me coaching, man. And
Yeah, I just find the whole which conference is better thing now to be it's sort of a boring argument because what's actually true is that it's just the Big Ten and the SEC and everybody else. I mean, Miami is about to play for a national title. Nobody is talking about how great the ACC is. Like, nobody is. And it also, like, I think it shows, like, everyone's saying, like, oh, yeah, like, OU, the way, like, the landscape and the way that college football is going, it, like, forced their hand. They had to go to the SEC. You sure? Like, are we sure about that? Because, like, that is the one thing. It's like, I think week in and week out, it's obviously harder in the SEC than it is in the Big Ten. You just go look at, like, the composites of, like, talented rosters. I just saw a tweet yesterday. Oklahoma played 9 games this season against top 25 talented rosters. Indiana's played 2 games. Or it's 3 technically because they played Oregon twice and they played Ohio State. But
so then what you're getting at is you got to get the right coach. You got to get the right coach, man. Because, I mean, look at Texas Tech. I mean, Texas Tech would be the thing. Hey, yeah, they got to go. Texas Tech, I've been telling people, like, this year Tech was like the inverse of what OU would have been, what OU was in the Big 12. Texas Tech had a terrific defense. I know their offensive numbers are really good, but that offense was not that good. You could see it in the Big 12 title game, and their quarterback play was not very good. And it showed in the playoff. They couldn't score. And so, like, their defense was good. I mean, their defense kept them in that game. So it was just flipped. The final score was kind of lower, but those old OU games were always super high scoring, but they got their butts kicked, because their defense was bad. So we basically saw the inverse of what OU used to be in the Big 12 with Texas Tech. I know they think Brendan Sorsby is going to help them. Maybe he will. I don't know. But to me, that just tells me they were bad at quarterback. If they had a better quarterback, they could have maybe made a run. They could have maybe beaten that Oregon team. They just didn't have very good quarterback play.
yeah, and I think it's just think the Big Ten teams at the top are playing teams like Purdue and I'm trying to think of other terrible
Nebraska,
and
Rutgers.
Rutgers. There's all I know is that my alma mater, Minnesota, they went 7-5 this year. I'm very confident that they would have been the worst team in the SEC this year. Like, very confident. So, just kind of is what it is at this point. And, like, the Big Ten and the SEC are going to continue to play each other in the regular season because it's been happening a lot more. And the SEC is probably going to win more of those games going forward. But I do think going forward, at least here in the short term, the Big Ten is still probably going to have the most dominant teams in the country during the regular season. They just are. Because I say it I think there are now, with Indiana and Mark Cuban, and Indiana's got I don't know if Indiana has a top 5 alumni base in the entire country. Indiana's a huge school. And so I think they actually have a lot of untapped money. And the biggest difference is in the Big Ten right now, there are 3 programs who are trying to win a national title every year. In the SEC, there's 11. So that's the biggest difference.
All right, before we go, in case we don't have a show before the national title game, we'll just get ourselves on record. So it sounds like you were going to grab Miami plus the points.
Yep, they're playing a home game, and I hate them, and the entire world is made to frustrate me. So I think, I right now, I think Miami's going to win.
Okay, yeah. I mean, the home game thing is crazy, but I'll ride with Sig and the Hoosiers, and their dominance continues, and it'll just even add more to the ridiculousness that they're going to go into Miami and win a game on the road. I mean, Indiana, as you could tell, they travel, so they'll be able to travel. They'll be able to get some people in that stadium, and they've just been killing people. It's a mismatch in the coaching matchup. Indiana's so well, so I'll keep riding with Indiana, and
And I hope you're right. I hope you're right about it. Like I would love to see Sig in Indiana just wallop Miami on their home field for the national championship. That would be, but part of me is just like, and these are the two teams this season that like the national media have just been slobbering all over themselves for. Like I even saw it like in the first half of the Miami Ole Miss game when Miami was, I thought Miami dominated Ole Miss like pretty thoroughly in the first half of that game. Just like I'm on Twitter and just like whatever, like the national college football media just the biggest chubby ever for Miami. They love Miami so much. They want dominant Miami back so badly. And so I think it's interesting that you have the two like darlings of college football playing in a national title together. And part of me just says I think Miami's going to win because I think Miami is about to come back as the major villain of college football. I think them beating Miami or them beating Indiana, like and ending this like great fairy tale story, is going to turn them into the big villain in college football again that everybody hates.
All right. Well, there you go, guys. Welcome back to the show. Not sure when we're going to be back, so take it all in. That's why we give you over 2 hours.
I think maybe
when the portal closes, we get more of an idea of the returners.
We might be able to do another one in a week, another Sunday record after, because the portal will be closed, and maybe we'll have be able to talk about. Well, I guess that'll be the day before the national championship, so maybe we should do it after that. I don't know. We'll figure it out.
We shall figure it out, guys. Thank you for listening. Thanks for the support, and we will see you next time. Until then, for Grant, I am Lee. This is West of Everest. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you subscribe to the show. And if you want to help us spread the word, please leave us a 5-star review. And also, tell all of your friends who are OU fans about West of Everest. You can listen to this podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, and SoundCloud.